we're watching M3gan, and I think we're both thrilled, right?
You're doing an intro.
Yeah, well,
Right now.
Right now.
I fucking hate you.
This is like our thing. He says, I fucking hate you. You can't say that on the internet. When will he learn? So tonight we're going to watch M3gan. How do you feel about that, by the way?
I am not thrilled. I did not have a say in this movie.
He's thrilled. He's thrilled.
I'm not very happy about this.
Well, you chose one out of the box. It was fair.
It was not fair.
It was
the
fair.
box is rigged because
The box isn't rigged. It's got loads of different things.
I haven't put any movie ideas in the box.
Because they would have sucked.
Like M3gan.
M3gan's very young. I don't think you want to get into this whole M3gan sucking thing.
Well, this is going to be a good one.
Like M3gan.
Jesus Christ.
Do you think we need to make notes?
I brought a notebook.
Of course you did.
I don't expect to take any notes. I didn't look up anything about this movie.
I did.
Of course you did.
I'm lying, actually. I looked up a little bit. Blumhouse. He doesn't look like a fat suit.
Yeah, I read what you sent me today, but we can't say it here.
It's today.
Something's going, yep.
It was a nice touch. This is the future, better get used to it, and then they die.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Word.
Oh, shut up. You love it.
And so all of a sudden she's just gonna build this highly advanced robot in her basement.
Yeah, couldn't get it right in a lab. And now I'm recording.
Now you're recording.
We're so good. I checked everything. Forgot to press the record button.
Yeah, buddy. And my microphone's on.
And my microphone's on. And the lights are on. And the AI's on. Everything's working.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And this is what you come back for. This
High energy.
this quality.
High octane.
Yeah. What episode is this?
7.
Really?
Siete. For the Spanish members of our audience.
Do we have any Spanish members of our audience?
One can hope.
If not, you've just learned something important.
Yeah.
But I've already forgotten it. So episode 7.
Yep.
I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to take your word for it.
7.
7.
M3gan.
M3gan. With a 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
M3gan.
M3, I forgot. It was a bit of a stretch, wasn't it? It was a bit of a tenuous.
Model 3 generative android.
Nut.
That's what the acronym. It's an acronym.
It's an acronym.
Yeah.
You know what an acronym is?
I was in the military. I know what acronyms are.
Wow, it's not bad for an American. For an American.
I'm not taking that bait.
They've got plenty more. So M3gan, we dipped into the box and M3gan popped out. Now on the surface,
Fuck this movie.
not a terrible movie, but there's nothing below the surface. It's.
If you really, really, really wanted to sit there and dig, I'm sure you could find some embedded symbolism, because there always is.
There is a little bit of embedded symbolism. There's a little bit of feminism in there. There's a little bit of other stuff in there. It's a choppy, uneven mess of a script. Yeah. All right, well, let's introduce it properly. If you haven't seen it, we're going to spoil it for you. It's about a little girl whose parents are killed, and then she has to go and live with her uncle, who's an aunt now, and she's sad. So her aunt builds her a little psychopathic robot.
Well, no.
No, how?
The aunt was already building the psychopathic robot. She just...
Yeah, but she gives it to her.
Yeah, she just kind of decides that that's what she's going to do with it.
Which does beg the question, why was she building a psychopathic robot in the first place?
To sell it to children for $10,000 a pop, apparently.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, she's building these pets. So we open the film with your dead dog.
What's a commercial for
dogs
a
die.
Furby ripoff.
Yeah, dogs die. Very sad. So we've got perpetual pets, which is a little plastic thing that farts and shits.
And it looks like a Furby that did a bunch of meth.
Yeah. Well, Furbies look like a Furby that did a bunch of meth.
Yeah, but it was very...
More meth.
And I'm sure they did it on purpose, but it was very off-putting the way that they gave it human teeth. And you
but very
see
small.
The gums.
Yeah. It was... I mean, it's a horror comedy, but there are no laughs in it or horror.
No, very little of either. I was honestly expecting it to be gorier than it was.
There's no gore in it.
There's one tiny little scene, but it barely counts.
Are you talking about the knife scene?
The elevator scene.
But you don't see anything. You see a little bit of blood on the knife.
On the wall.
Yeah.
When she leaves the elevator, somebody sees the elevator.
Yeah, there's some blood.
So you get this one scene of a gruesome, bloody elevator. That's it.
But none of that makes any bloody sense either. No. It's so badly written. There's no motivation for the characters. No one really does what they're supposed to do. Nobody makes any sense.
The only person that she kills that she actually had any sort of reason or excuse to kill was that asshole little boy, Brandon.
She didn't kill him.
Well, exactly.
She didn't even try to kill him.
That was the only one that she had any right to kill.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so, yeah, this aunt is building toys. And there is a scene where she explains to her boss that the reason that the perpetual pets is expensive is that it's got lots of code in it that's being developed for future toys. It's more advanced. So they're building up this AI model.
And we also learn that we learn a little later, but she has embedded some sort of speech tracking software into
the
things,
toys,
and has been monitoring children's speech patterns.
Yeah, and feeding it back. So it's teaching the AI system, and the Asian boss character, who is a terrible performance in this, it's horrible. And he's not that bad an actor, so I can only assume he was made to behave badly.
I've seen that guy in other stuff, but he's not terrible.
No, it's a really incompetent performance. Most of them are, to be fair. The acting is pretty... It's not even wooden, it's just off.
Yeah.
Everyone's a little bit off. There's one notable woman actress. She plays a camp counselor or something, and she does a startled impression. And it's actually pretty solid acting.
It's pretty solid.
But it's a solid, competent piece of acting, but it shows up against the others as being Shakespeare quality compared to the rest of it. And it really isn't that stunning a performance, but it's just that acting was competent. None of the characters are particularly likable. None of them have any motivations that make any sense. There's no escalation. So there's a scene where the boss comes and attacks her because she's been building this robot that doesn't work. Again, this is nonsense. It doesn't work at all. It's a little girl frame, and you get to see it in pieces. And the joints are tiny. It's got no strength. The servo actuators are small. It's not a powerful thing. It's not a fucking Terminator. It's just a toy.
Yeah, it's 4 feet tall.
Yeah, So the laws of physics still apply to titanium chassied 4 foot tall toys. So it doesn't work. It explodes, but the head blows up. And she's been using company funds to have this thing built. And then the boss comes in, chews her out. He needs an updated perpetual pet toy because a rival company is building a Furby ripoff. It's almost called Furby, and it's cheaper. It's half Furzy, yeah, and it's half the price. That's when she talks about the coding. But again, that doesn't really make sense. She doesn't come across as an engineer or a coder or anything. She's just some woman who we don't really know who she is. At one point, she's incompetent to the point of not knowing how to make food, and then the next minute she's got problems with coasters. It's just she's an uneven mess. We don't know who she is. We're not getting any real impression of who this character is.
Well, the character is
it's a non-character
written and filmed in such and acted in such a way as to never allow you to nail down who this person
Yeah.
is. In one scene, she's a clean freak, and in
Yeah.
the next scene, she's neurotic.
Yeah.
It can't decide who it wants her to be,
Yeah.
or what it wants her to be.
Well, what we talked about when we were watching it is this character a man? Is it written? Are they written as a man? Because they're clearly meant to be. When the parents die, this person's sister has left the child to her so that she can raise it. Although she's a terrible
Human?
Yeah, she's not involved in the child's life at all. She's not even living in the same state.
It's not someone I would leave a child
No,
with.
it's a nobody. And it just doesn't sort of make sense. But it would have made sense if it was a man who has no emotional empathy. It's a man who's obsessed with his job, who's a bit of a geek, he collects toys, and now they've just hired a woman to play this guy. That's how it feels.
Yeah, especially given some of the lines, and some of the tasks, the way that they've chosen whatever you want to call it, the makeup department, the way they've done them up.
She's very manly, very masculine. Everything's a little off. At one point, a woman hands her a jar, and she opens the jar of pickles, and it's a very obvious sort of nod that this is a man. And this is all the way through the film. And you picked up on a bit where the girl, Katie, which is not a girl's name, is playing with a bow and arrow, and she's behaving like a little boy. Yeah. I know I've got a little boy who behaves exactly that way, and I've got a girl who behaves in exactly the opposite way. So, absolutely, these characters are gender swap. But when he talks about the Thursday, the boss, he makes a point that is a joke about Blumhouse, because Blumhouse are known for making blockbuster movies on a tiny budget, and they pretty much do. They make a good looking film, still a B movie, but a high quality B movie for zero budget. They do fuck all. I think because they don't employ all the money laundering things that Hollywood do. I think they make them out of state, and they're just cleaner, so there's not as much wastage. So I think it's just a cheap way of making movies and keeping the money rolling. And he makes a joke about that by saying that the Furzies, it's just a cheap copy, but that's what we do, we make cheap copies. And that makes no sense, because they're not making the cheap copy. The cheap copy is from another company that threatens them. So it's a little nod to the audience that we're talking about us as a production house. We're making the cheap copies. And the film is absolutely just a cut-by-cut rip-off of dozens and dozens of movies. Every 5 minutes you're spotting another rip-off of another better film. Yeah. It's almost like they are fairly respectful, and they are nods to other movies, but it's so repetitive that by the end it's not its own thing. It's first of all, it's Chucky, so you've got the child's play, and there was a remake of Chucky. There was a more recent remake where the Chucky doll was a connected AI, and it's basically just that. In this, she is not as connected, but later on when the script needs her to be, suddenly she can communicate with other computers and override them. That's not mentioned anywhere in it at all. Until
we're told
the
that
end.
she's an emergent learning AI.
It
just, to me, I assumed that she was using her time to figure out how to do those things.
Yeah.
In the beginning, we do see her access the internet, and then later on, she downloads multiple somethings.
Yeah.
She just calls them like packages or something like that.
Yeah, she's up and downloading. Well, she's supposed to be backing up to the cloud, but then we find out that she's corrupting her own files. So she's growing all the way through the film. So the aunt has to take on this child. It doesn't go very well at first because she's just not emotionally connecting with anybody. There's no mention of a relationship at all. There's no sexual chemistry between any of the characters, which is unusual. There's no love interest or anything. It's just her and her work and the child. There really is no other character. There's a cop later on, the plainclothes detective, who's putting together the fact that she's been at 2 murder sites, and pretty sure that was picked up in one of the Chucky movies, where the girl who's the main character, which is gender swapped, is romantically interested in a policeman who keeps coming round and hanging out with her, who I think eventually destroys the doll in one of the movies. But it is just rip-off after rip-off. And yeah, she's got this emergent AI, but the finale is she gets her ass kicked, and there's another robot. And this makes no sense either. She's got this robot that's a proxy robot. And what it's supposed to be is, she's supposed to be a remote person, and the robot can walk around and do things that you can control remotely. So it's you by proxy.
Somehow it knows how to move forward and do all kinds of shit just because you're wearing
gloves.
2 gloves.
With LEDs. She was pressing buttons. And that was interesting because at the end, the daughter, or niece, starts operating it with no training whatsoever. And she's getting it to function absolutely perfectly. And she wins the fight just like in Alien 2, like she's operating the loader. But what was interesting is she asks how it works. She takes the face off. Shows you how it is inside, and then when Megan loses her face at the end, it's the same prop and it's got the same brain, and this was supposed to be a robot that she built in college, and then she says the problem with these is they're so expensive, you can't afford to build them. Well, how
now
did you?
She's built 2.
Yeah, how did you build this thing? Well, it gets worse, doesn't it? I mean, she's built this thing in college years ago, presumably, and the brain is still cutting edge. And it's good enough for Megan, who is this super genius
AI.
It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't work. But yeah, she's built this machine at work using their facilities. She's moved her lab to the basement to cover it up, and it doesn't work. The head explodes because the dumb white man forgot to put the stuff in it. He forgot to put this barrier in between the face skin thing and the
there's
metal.
only 2 real white male characters in the film, and they're both bumbling idiots.
Who's the other one?
The assistant to David.
Oh yeah. Well, he's a villain. He's corrupt as fuck as well.
Yeah.
So he bumbles, and then she decides, fuck this. I'm not going to design this other pet. Even though it would be very, very simple to just cut the coding elements out. I don't know anything about coding, but I do know if you've got a complicated version and most of it is unnecessary and shouldn't have been there in the first place, you just remove it. And then they could have just redone it.
Well, the bigger thing to me was the fact that her boss tells her to have this thing on his desk by Friday. And then over the weekend, she is still working on it, and in the middle of that decides, fuck it, I'm not going to do this anymore. And we never hear anything else about it. The boss doesn't bitch at her. She never gets fired.
But it's not over the weekend. It's she now takes the remains of Megan home, the one with the exploded head, and makes a new one with no facilities. So she's doing it in her basement now, even though she had to do it at work before. She makes this thing in her basement, and this time it works absolutely flawlessly.
And she colludes with her team.
Yeah, they come and help. And again, none of this makes any sense. And it's not a weekend because the little girl's got scars and they're disappeared by the demo. So this has been weeks and weeks and weeks, and no one's questioned the lack of her actually creating anything. So that makes no sense. And then Megan does her demonstration and she's absolutely perfect. There's not a single hiccup. They demonstrate it to the boss at work, and now he does a complete 360 and says, this is perfect, let's sell this instead, fuck the pets. And then it just sort of continues, it limps along for a while. The next door dog bites the little girl, so that has to die. In a very bizarre scene. So the dog is strong enough to pull Megan through the fence and attack her, and she's made of titanium, so the skeleton's fine, but the rubber is rubber, and that's fine too. And then Megan's hair changes a lot.
Yeah.
For a doll that's supposed to be a doll, its hairstyle changes color and shape and everything all the way through, depending on the look it needs for the scene. And then in the later scene, she pulls the dog through, even though she's less than the weight of the dog. So that makes no fucking sense. None of this makes any sense. The only bit that made me actually cringe was where the counselor, because of course we've got to have a counselor, and she's got to be a bitch.
Everything about the counselor was cringe.
She's horrible. Terrible character. she comes in and makes her open one of her collectibles, and that actually hurt. I used to have an eBay shop selling collectibles, and I wasn't into it myself, but I treated those things with reverence. You appreciate what they are, and she has to rip this box open, and it's just horrible.
And that's exactly how those cunts are in real life.
Yeah, I bet that's true. Well, it is. I mean, we've got them at school, and that's exactly how they are. Yeah, they think, oh, let's not get into that. Yes. And then for some reason, M3gan goes on a killing spree, and there's no logic behind it whatsoever. And I'm going to be charitable. And at one point, M3gan is up. They've got her in a sort of crucifixion thing where she's chained up and she's being crucified. She's like Jesus, and she's going to resurrect because there's a sequel. And it's just sad. And they plugged her in, and she doesn't recognize a second user. She only recognizes the child. And they quickly reprogram because they forgot to put that in. And after that, she goes on her murder rampage. So just to be charitable, say, okay, she malfunctioned or she fucked up. But she's already giving them the side eye, and she's already suspicious by that point, So it doesn't really add up. So she goes on a killing spree that makes no fucking sense. She kills the dog, but we never see the dog.
That made sense.
Yeah,
the dog
was a threat.
The dog's a threat.
She was a threat to the daughter, to the kid. So, but then she kills the old woman who owns the dog, and that makes zero sense. And she does it with a chemical sprayer that is about as powerful as a Chinese water pistol.
My assumption is she had to have put like some sort of acid in there because it looked yellow.
Yeah, well, it was difficult to tell. It was very dark, but it wasn't powerful enough to blow this old woman across the room, which is what happened. So
it's not how pressure washers.
No, well, there'd be a recoil, but the doll is standing there, and then the old woman is flying across the room. So that's not how anything works at all.
Well, this movie doesn't really care about such trivialities as the laws of physics.
No. But there was an opportunity there for a good scene. She could have drowned her with the chemicals. She could have burned her face off. But no, this refused to go gory because it just forgot it was a horror movie. It's a horror comedy. There's no laughs. There's no setups. There's no amusing scenes. I would argue that the original Child's Play was funnier because they knew that this was a camp horror film.
Yeah.
And it was more amusing.
Well, Chucky would break the fourth wall on occasion.
Not so much in the first one.
Yeah.
There was a really creepy scene where the mother gets the doll, turns it over, or maybe gets the box and the batteries fall out, and she realizes they're not in there. And you think, oh shit, that's when you realize, okay, this is bad. It's quite a creepy scene. There's nothing like that in this. The doll is just not creepy.
No.
The little girl has a scene with a bully. The bully, he's a bit of a dick. He's a dick to his mum. He's a bit of a dick. He's not really overtly threatening the girl at this point, but then M3gan turns up and escalates the problem.
He does attack the little girl.
Not physically.
Yeah, he goes to hand her something.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, what is that? And it's spiky, and then he shoves it into her palm.
Yeah. It's only it's not spiky. It's got spikes, but they're not hard.
I don't know what the fuck it is.
Well, it was a conker. It was a conker shell. They're not that hard. They're soft. It's not pleasant, I guess, but it's not going to hurt you. And then M3gan turns up and escalates it, and she just stands there. So the boy takes her away, wants to play with her, but he can't get anything out of her. And he throws her on the ground and mounts her.
Yeah, takes one shoe off and throws it.
Yeah.
It's a very strange scene.
For a 10-year-old boy, it's very over-sexualized.
Yeah.
When you've got to bear in mind that M3gan is basically a child in a costume. I would assume in that scene it was just a doll because it was very stiff.
Yeah.
But it was too sexual. And then M3gan chases him, he trips over, he gets hit by a car. So she doesn't actually overtly do anything.
No, I mean, she leads to his death, but he initiated all of that, so it's his fault.
And she's chasing him, but she's running on all fours well, that takes us back to the pet thing. Is she the replacement for the pet? Not sure. because the film's not sure.
Yeah.
It's the only time she acts like that. Did she pick it up from the dog? Is she killing to learn from these things? Why is she doing this? We don't know, because the film hasn't made a decision about this.
Well, she also realizes at some point, she comes to the epiphany that she is going to die one day.
Well, that's right at the beginning. Am I going to die? Yeah, she looks up death so she can better help the little girl whose parents are dead. And then she asks, am I going to die? But there's no answer, because they don't even know if she's alive. They don't know what she is. She's only a toy. And it's important to remember, she is just a toy. She's not a Terminator. She's not a cyborg. She's not trying to infiltrate and destroy the resistance. She's just a toy. And she's only got a tiny brain that's this big, and it comes from a college robot. Probably some spare that she had lying around. So it makes no sense. Then she kills the old woman for no real reason. I don't really understand why. She was a bit of a bitch, but no more of a bitch than the aunt. No more of a bitch. They were just
different.
Yeah, but they seemed to be getting on okay at first. They seemed to be quite friendly, but it was only later that they, with the dog getting in and biting the girl, did they actually have any real animosity. Before then, they seemed to be getting on. And then, they take Megan for diagnosis, because they're starting to realise that something's a bit off with her. And they put her back in the Jesus crucifixion chains, which she just breaks through. And then she murders their boss in this crazy scene.
Well, she attacks the team.
They're okay. I mean, to escape.
Yeah.
She doesn't. She
could have killed that one guy.
Yeah, he's hung.
Yeah, he's hung by like a steel cable.
Yeah, but I felt that was more of a distraction. That was more to keep the other woman busy, because she didn't do anything to her. It was just to keep them busy. Then she caused an explosion that didn't actually kill anybody, and she could have done, and probably should have done.
Well, she blew up the server.
Yeah. And then she kills the boss for no reason whatsoever, because he's just not been a part of this at all. But she does this bizarre dance scene that you've seen in the trailers. It's way off.
Yeah. And then she does like some kung fu.
Yeah.
And comes running at him.
Well, I took it more as gymnastics. She's doing some rolls and stuff. There was a little scene earlier where the two are dancing together, but it's only a quick snap in as part of a montage. So where this came from and why she would be suddenly dancing in front of the boss, I don't get it at all. It didn't fit. It felt like an insert just for the trailer, or for some other obscure reason that I'm not privy to. It didn't fit at all. Then she kills the other guy, the other white guy. Now he's previously copied all her files for no reason.
Yeah.
It felt like they were going somewhere with this plot. He's copying the files, and then they just add a line of dialogue that says, probably just for a prank. Well,
what?
No, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense. I mean, if he'd have been copying her files and caused some kind of corruption, then okay, now we've got a reason why she's a villain. Or the sequel is based on they've tried to copy her code and...
That's my assumption.
I don't think so.
Well, her code is still active in the world.
Well, we think so, yeah. We see at the end the little... There's a household.
Elsie.
Yeah, and that lights up. So that's presumably where she is at the end.
It's an Alexa.
Yeah.
And she's taken it over. We're led to assume through several scenes of the movie, about halfway through, Elsie just stops responding. And then for the rest of the movie, the main character, Jim, continues to talk to Elsie and ask it to turn on lights and do this and that. And it never responds to her, but she keeps talking to it like... She's shocked every time that it's not...
Yeah. And by then we have to assume that instead of Megan controlling Elsie, she's now in Elsie controlling the Megan shell. Yeah. So she's perfectly fine after it gets his ass kicked. So she's off in the ether. She's in the cloud. I mean, there's a sequel coming. So, and I think it was written with that in mind. I think what they've done is they've looked at Chucky. Well, the doll's destroyed every episode, so we can just do the same thing. We'll super glue it back together. We'll have some scars or whatever.
Well, like I said, I think that an easy route there is you just say that all this business with M3gan bankrupted that company, especially after the David guy died. Somebody else, some other billionaire asshole steps in and goes, no, we can do it better. Let's revive this project.
Yeah, that's what they're going to do. And yeah, she'll be up. Well, this is exactly what happened in the remake of the Child's Play thing, the Chucky thing. That's what happened. There was hundreds of these things, and he started controlling all of them.
And as clunky as this script was, I mean, I'd imagine in that one, as they're turning on the new version of M3gan, over somebody's shoulder, you'll just see an Elsie sitting in the back of the room. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Let's go this
But there
route.
was so many rip-offs of other movies. The face ripping off was Westworld, although better than Westworld, because in the Westworld movie it's just a circuit board underneath a rubber face. The original Westworld. It's Alien, Terminator.
Yep.
Oh yeah. There was an old film called Hardware, and it was a pretty good 80s dystopian film. It was a low budget B movie, and this robot is found out in this desert, and it sort of puts itself back together and becomes this huge threat. And the rest of the movie is them fighting this thing and basically failing. It ends up killing everybody, and they just managed to kill it by putting it in the shower, and it dies. So it's not impervious to water, and they pulled that as well. So they splash her with water, and she fails.
Yeah, malfunctions severely.
But the ending of Hardware was pretty cool, because you as you pan out, you get a radio that says, we're now mass producing these robots and we've fixed the water problem. So now it killed everybody after being blown up, and it was still able to do this damage, and now it's impervious to water. And that's quite a creepy ending. This wasn't at all. So they're just copying film after film after film, and bragging about this is what we do.
Yeah.
And if you look up the directors and writers, which I actually did because I'm a professional, I know you didn't. The director's got only like one other credit for a film he's written and directed. The rest is just TV stuff. The direction is not bad. The acting performances are. I just think he lacks confidence. He's not driving them properly. The writing is the real problem. There's no escalation. There's no idea why this is happening. There's no. I mean, the scene where she takes on the bully Brandon. She says, she kills him, or she causes him to die. Oh, this is what happens to bad little boys. But where did she pick up this animosity? The animosity clearly only comes from the writer. It doesn't come from M3gan or the daughter.
No, but the idea is that she's connected to the internet.
But we're not told that she's picking this up from the internet. A good writer will tell you where this comes from.
Well, a good writer, they were not.
Yeah, I know that, but it feels more like there should have been a history of abuse, and I feel like it was in the original script. There was a history of abuse. Her father may have been emotionally abusive to her, and he's a bad man. And there's a little hint of that where they're in the car, and there's a couple of little things he says, and it's only a very short scene. There's a nice little bit where he says about screens, they're the future. We've got to get used to it just before they die. That's a nice touch. But then he says if she wasn't watching the screen, she'd be jumping all over the place. But we never see her jumping all over the place. She's not a difficult child. Or is she? Or is the impact of the death turned her into a different person? So is she really, really a horrible child jumping around? She does get a little bit difficult after she drops the pad. And then he says to her, to the mother, it's not me that gave her the screen, so why are you moaning at me? And then she says something about chains, and he says, look, you know what? Neither of us knew chains existed 10 minutes ago, so don't blame me for not putting them on the car. Cutting off an attack. So maybe there's meant to be an element of emotional abuse.
Well, I think it's more of the parents, of the child watching the parents fight each other.
Yeah. Also, she never mentions her father. She's sad about the loss of her mother. She never references him again.
Yeah, but it's also, there's something weird about the relationship with the mother.
Yeah.
Because she's she starts crying because she's supposedly sad that she's worried she'll forget things about her mother.
Yeah, this comes out of nowhere, by the way.
So M3gan consoles her by asking her, what is one of your favorite memories of your mother? A happy memory. And at first she can't even think of anything. And then after a minute she comes out with this story that's something terrible happening to her mother. I can't remember what the story was.
She found a cockroach.
Yeah, she found a cockroach.
And it crawled
up her arm, and she ran out of the house screaming, and that made Katie laugh. And that's the memory she has.
But I think the undercurrent here, and the writing is so choppy that it doesn't always work, is this is about technology replacing your pets and ultimately replacing you. And that's what this is about. She's made M3gan. But we don't see that. M3gan's watching her at one point and she's playing with a bow and arrow. But she's not saying anything murderous. She's not trying to kill anything. She's just playing. So there's no explanation that she's made M3gan this awful.
She never really asks M3gan to hurt anybody.
No, not at all. But she's emotionally very connected to M3gan until she isn't.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden she's team auntie.
Yeah.
And there's no reason for that. It doesn't make sense. There's no hesitation at all. She suddenly fights for the right team because the script requires it. There's no emotional heft to anything that happens. It's just, it happens because it needs to happen to get us to the ending. It's just, this is where we want to go. There's no twist in the tale. There's no surprises along the way. There's no real clever stuff. There's no symbolism. The house has a few collectibles in it, but it looks like it's just the director's house. Yeah. And they've just put some stuff in it.
It's very well put together for this scatterbrained, neurotic geek scientist that they've concocted for their script.
Well, that's what other people say about it, but we don't see it. We don't see this scatty person. We see somebody who's actually very in control of their life, a very expensive, nice house, very organized life, the most important person in the company, and has been before. She's designing the #1 toy. So this is someone with their shit together, but we're also told they can't get their shit together several times. So we're not seeing the character that was written portrayed in the film. We're getting two completely contrasting things. At one point I said, is this supposed to be a couple? Is this character two people? Is this meant to be a husband and wife team or a boyfriend and girlfriend? And they just combine the characters. I've done that myself. I've done a thing where I wrote two characters as agents, and I realized I didn't have anything for them to do throughout the plot. So I went back and I just built them into one character and just got rid of the idea of them being two. I just had one. So have they done that? Have they gone and looked at it and thought, well, there's not really enough to do? But that's bullshit, because in a horror, there's always something to do. You can always kill the character. You could have established the good character and the bad one. The man could have been the brother, and he's kind of a dick, and the girl is the normalizing influence, and then she dies. And then you've got some trauma, and then you've got something to actually drive the narrative, but it's just, it doesn't happen. But I did wonder if this was two characters that had been combined into one, because we're seeing lots of contrasting things that do not add up in this story.
And maybe that's the point. Because there's so much of it that it almost seems intentional.
Yeah. My impression after looking up the writer and the directors and the people behind it, and these are not good people. I mean, James Wan is behind it, the guy that made, well, one of the guys that made Saw. Now, the other guy went on to make films like Upgrade, which is fantastic. He's a great writer-director. He made the whole film himself. And James Wan is clearly not the talented one. So he was working for Blumhouse, and they made Malignant, and they've settled out of court because somebody sent Blumhouse a spec script, and they ripped it off. They just used it as the basis of Malignant. It had all the same ideas in it. So these people are not nice people. They're ripping left and right. And this is well, they make jokes about it. That's what we do. We rip people off. We copy and we cheat. and that's what we've got here as a movie. It's Chucky, but changed just enough
to not be Chucky.
To get away with it legally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you look at the remake of Chucky, it's even closer because that was an AI toy. I only saw it once years ago because I was curious because I remember the director of the original was pissed off about it, but he sold the rights away and there's nothing he could do to stop it. And I remember it being a broken Chucky that I think the janitor reassembled for him to give to the poor young guy who didn't have the money to buy one himself. And that's why it malfunctioned, off the top of my head. So they've gone with a prototype angle instead. It doesn't add up. It's a rip-off. It's a rip-off of Chucky, especially the remake. And you mentioned the haunted children thing is a very common trope in horrors. Very
common trope. There's dozens and dozens of this particular movie.
Yeah. But this does not venture into horror territory at all. They try to... having a run on all fours is meant to be creepy. You know, you've got this rubber face, so there's no expression.
Ridiculous.
It looked stupid.
You're not faster.
Yeah.
I
she's still got a human.
Was them trying to tell me that she doesn't have the balance to run full tilt.
No.
But that doesn't make sense either because she does all sorts of other things
perfectly
that would need incredible balance.
Yeah. Well, the dancing scene, she's pulling cartwheels and stuff. And there's no real growth to the character. You know, she's supposed to be advancing.
Well, that hallway running scene felt like The Shining.
Yeah. I mean, the white guy stealing the files reminded me of Jurassic Park. It was just rip-off after rip-off. You know, you could watch it with... you could probably find 100 movie scenes ripped off in that. Yeah. There was an old TV show called Spaced with Simon Pegg. And if you put the DVD commentary on, literally every second line is a rip-off of a movie, but it's done so cleverly you can't even see it. These guys are meant to be geeks who've lived their whole lives around movies, especially Star Wars. And lots of Star Wars lines are in it that you don't see because they're obscure. And it's very clever how they've embedded, and it's still a good story. Each episode is actually very smart. This wasn't. This was just... My take on it would be, these movies worked, so let's copy them. Yeah. Because that's what people like. This wasn't a competent writer. This is not a competent story.
It's not a competent film?
No.
They're not competent actors?
They're not well known enough for me to remember them from anything else. I suspect the director was at fault with the acting because I do know the Asian guy. I've seen him in something else. And he was awful. He was just terrible. A lot of other characters were as well, but I don't think it was all of the actors being incompetent, even unknown actors. It was just a lackluster performance. It was just half-assed.
The Hayden Christensen effect?
Yeah.
George Lucas saying, okay, please act shittier.
Yeah. Well, again, this was a Kubrick thing. In The Shining, he kept saying to Jack Nicholson, do it again, but make it cheesier. And then Jack Nicholson would end up hamming it up as a horrible performance just to take the piss out of him. And then that would be the one they used.
Yeah.
So he was trying to get a bad performance out of them. But he was smart enough to be coding something into it.
There was a reason for it,
Yeah, this doesn't feel like that. I think there's an underlying metaphor here that technology is bad. Over-reliance on technology is bad. We get used to it, we think it's human, it isn't human. But there's no need for it to have become murderous. That makes no sense in the plot.
The idea was technology is destroying society.
Yeah. Well, the writer is on a panel where they're trying to stop AI from analysing screenplays. They're trying to get it back to humans. But if this is an example of the humans that will be doing it, then no point. Because this is just bad writing. She qualified from a writing university. You know, she's got American credits, and it's pointless.
Doesn't mean much these days.
It doesn't mean anything because this is not a well-written film. And interestingly, we've said it before, we're in Cambodia, there's no copyright laws here. We can download without any problems. And it's hard to download. There was only 2 versions where they were genuine copies, and one of them had distorted sound, so I got rid of that one, and I got a smaller version. It was only 1.4 gig. I looked at a bigger version, thinking it was going to be a better copy, and the comments on it all said this is just a cam. So how often can you find a movie that's been out for a couple of years and only find cams of it to download? That's rare.
Well, I didn't look for it.
No, I know
could have
you
found
did.
an HD copy.
No, but I did. But the point is, there's not enough interest in this movie for people to even upload it. They're not interested.
I would say it depends on where you look. Because
I'm talking about torrent size.
Yeah, you'd be surprised, man. There's people interested in everything out there.
Yeah, there is, but that's why this file was still easy enough to get. But there aren't dozens of files. There's not a really large. There's not a 10 gig file. There's not a 2 gig file. No one cares.
Nobody gives a shit.
No, this movie just didn't hit the mark. It was a forgettable film. The only thing I found interesting about it was the idea that have they gender swapped these characters after writing them? But I don't think they have. I think it's just feminist bullshit. I think it's just a woman writing a woman and not understanding what a woman really is.
Well, they write women as men.
That's exactly how it feels.
And that's what it is.
Yeah, that's how it feels. But it's so badly done that I really thought, was this written as a man? But the writing is so choppy. The character is so badly defined. It was like in Voyager, where the captain is just, you don't know who the fuck she is, because
Janeway's whatever she needs to be, that 5 minutes of a scene.
Yeah, sometimes she's a hysterical woman, other times she's a cold calculating scientist. And you think, well, who is this character? You know, please, some consistency in the writing. We didn't get this with Picard or Kirk. With Kirk, you got a few surprises, but you didn't get this. And this film feels the same. It feels just, who the fuck is this character? Because by the time you get to the end, you don't really know or care. You don't care about these people. They're unlikable. You don't really sympathize with the girl because she doesn't really have any trauma from losing her parents.
She's a little sociopath.
Well, but not really. I mean, she has a little temper tantrum at one point, even hits her aunt, but then she apologizes for it. If she was more aggressive at the beginning, then okay, this is where M3gan is getting it from. She's learning from the child. But she's not picking this up from the child. The child is just doesn't seem to care. She just rolls along with it. We just don't see motivation anywhere in the story, and there's no satisfaction because ultimately the child is so bland and unemotional throughout the film that we just don't really care about her journey, even though she's lost her parents. That should be the defining characteristic of this person. It's the defining characteristic of the narrative, but not the character. The aunt, well, now she suddenly says, you're the most important thing in my life, even though she's dedicated her entire life to her work.
Well, at one point, someone references Katie as being her child now, and she's like, that's not my child.
Yeah, well, when it's about demonstrating, you know, she's a workaholic again, temporarily. You know, she can't decide what she is because the writer doesn't know what she is.
Yeah.
And without a writer and a director, who I think the best films are when they're written and directed by the same person. They seem to be the best films. Unless those two work together and know what they're actually trying to say, then the audience doesn't know what they're trying to say. And we ended up with a character who, is it a man with long hair? Is it a masculine woman? Is it a lesbian?
Looks like Jay Muse from Jay and Silent Bob.
I didn't get that so much, but she has a very weird face from different angles. Sometimes she looks quite masculine, other times she didn't, depending on the camera angle and the lighting, which varied wildly. I don't know. She looked quite masculine. She had quite a powerful jawline, but it didn't come across. There was no emotional strength to her at all. I got that she was just more of a geek, more of a workaholic geek who just wanted to build toys. But why does she want to build toys? Bless you.
Sorry.
Why even want to build toys? Because she doesn't seem to give a shit about kids.
It's the robotics. I don't necessarily think it's the toys. She wants to work with robots, and this is the career that's allowed her to continue doing that.
But we don't know that. She builds toys.
With Bruce.
Well, no, when she was at college, she built Bruce, a robot. But we don't know if she was interested in following a career of building engineering toys or something. We don't know. We're never told who she is. We never get that moment where we define who she really is. She's into robots, yeah, because her toys are robots. She's got a load of collectibles and stuff like that. But there's just no motivation of these characters. There's no definition of who they are. It's all just messy.
Fair.
Fair. What are you doing?
I was clearing my sinuses.
With the mic?
By muting the mic.
Oh, I see. Okay. It doesn't matter. It'll be picked up on this one. As we now know from last week's
but not
debacle.
Loud. Not loud.
No, not loud. Sorry about that. Last week was a mess. This is what I have to work with.
I was about to say the same thing.
I've been good today. I haven't really caused any problems. Yet.
For who?
You. Because normally all we do is you hang your head and go, you can't say that on the internet. You can't count. I haven't done any of that today. I'm being good. So Megan, what would you give it out of 10?
3.
As bad as that? It's not as bad as that.
4.
It's not that bad.
No, I would give it a 4.
I'd give it a 5. It's watchable, but it's a forgettable movie. Doesn't really hit the mark. It's not bad.
It's just not
it's
my
not
cup
good.
of tea.
Well, no, I know it's
I've
not
never
your
been
cup of tea.
interested in these movies, and I was definitely not interested in watching
Definitely
this
wasn't.
one.
It's not a good film.
We've done a couple of shitty films in a row now, and we need a good film.
And there may be one in here.
Nah, bro. If I reach in there and I pull out another bullshit film,
Well, it's going to
I'm
happen.
vetoing the decision. I'm overriding the decision.
There's some great films in here. What have you got?
Honestly, I don't even know what the fuck this is.
Anon. It's a film. It's supposed to be good. I don't know. I haven't seen it.
This is gonna be another garbage film.
It's not going to be a garbage film.
Be another waste of a Friday night.
You were stoned and drinking whiskey. It's not a waste of a Friday night. Anon. So next week, we're going to be doing Anon.
We'll see about that. I'm gonna look up what this movie is.
Go on, then. You got your laptop?
Right this moment? No, I don't
Phone?
have a laptop.
No. Is it better than M3gan?
I mean, right now, fucking punching me in the face with a brick would be better than watching.
Oh, I've got a
M3gan.
brick.
We've already watched M3gan. It's too late.
It's never too late. I mean, you know.
This movie was. I mean, if that's your kind of movie and that's your thing, that's your thing. I don't give a fuck. But for me, this was like watching. I don't know. The Last Jedi or something.
No,
It's just
it wasn't Last
a
Jedi.
gruesome.
No, it wasn't.
Droll.
I think
film.
you've misunderstood the film. I think Blumhouse Studios, they make shit films.
Now I understand that they're mocking themselves in
But
the
it's
process
a B
of
movie
ripping
company.
everybody off.
It's a B movie company. They
Yeah, but
put
I don't
out-
watch any Blumhouse movies for that reason.
No, some of them are okay. I mean, Upgrade was a good film. That was a good
the
movie.
exception to the rule.
Unfortunately, I agree. I mean, I've followed Blumhouse. Not absolutely the exception to prove the rule. They have made some half decent films, but as they've gone along, their films have got worse and worse. And they've forced identity politics into it more and more and more. There wasn't much in there in M3gan.
There was some,
there was
but-
gender identity politics in there. Women can be men now. I mean, this was subtle social engineering. This is what it used to be like in the 80s with Terminator and Aliens. This is subtle social engineering, but it's subtle. It's not.
It's there.
It's there, but it's subtle. It's subtle. You can still watch this film. It's an okay movie. It's middle of the road. It's not gory enough to be a proper horror. It's not funny enough to be a proper comedy. It's just a film that you'd watch normally on an afternoon or on a date and just walk out the cinema and enjoy the popcorn. It's not. It is what it is. It's a Blumhouse B movie.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be taken seriously.
I wouldn't pay to see this garbage.
Well, some people did. It made money, and it's got a sequel coming. So
I know.
I don't think you understand it. I think you're trying to judge it as a movie.
I understand it.
No, I don't. I don't think you're trying to judge it compared to movies you like.
But just because I understand something doesn't mean I have to like it.
No, I'm not expecting you to like it, but I'm expecting just see it for what it is. It is as a B movie that doesn't pretend it isn't a B movie. It was okay. It wasn't great.
No, I understand that it's a B movie that kind of rises above.
Yeah.
It's still not my cup of tea.
No, it wasn't my cup of tea either. I just found the gender identity thing interesting. The confusion on the characters is interesting. It's a signpost in the way movies are going. And this has gone back.
A bad thing.
No, this has gone back to sort of mid-90s level where people said before woke, and it wasn't. They were woke in the 90s, and this is how they were woke. This is the same.
I don't think that Blumhouse is representative of Hollywood as a whole. I don't think
not as a whole.
Because they're, they were subtle in this one movie, so everybody's going to turn back the clock.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying people go back and they say in the 90s, movies weren't woke. They were just subtle about it.
Movies have always been woke.
This is exactly what I'm saying. And M3gan was an example of how it felt in the 90s, where you'd walk out and it would take a moment. You'd think, hang on a minute, that isn't quite right. That's not how people behave. But now it's insanely in your face, and it's actually counterproductive because it's making intelligent people, and more than you think, actually fight back against it. Where in the past, we'd accept Terminator and just say, yeah, she was just a strong character. We'd accept Aliens. Yeah, Ripley was a good character. That's why we like her. We wouldn't say, you know what, women don't behave like that. We didn't. We accepted it because she was a well-written character and it was a good movie. And we know these people are shit because they've gone on to make terrible films, and they've gone on to promote gender ideology, and they've gone on to say absolutely insane things. So we know these people were garbage.
Yep.
But
that's why it's so hard to watch TNG now. I used to love TNG.
Yeah. Every member of the cast is a piece of shit.
Yeah,
every
and you
one
can't
of them.
see past it anymore.
No, I can't anymore. No. It's made me question who Gene Roddenberry really was, because he was very much about this kind of stuff too. But again, in an even more subtle way. This has been coming for a long time. But M3gan is a good example of hidden woke, as it used to be in the 90s. In the 80s, it was a little more hidden, but now it's very much in your face. And I think M3gan is a good example of where you've got a character that you just think, this is basically a dude. And they're literally telling you it's basically a dude. The opening the pickle jar was very obvious.
Things. M3gan referencing Katie as being their child. She says our child.
Yeah. Well, that's the one nail in the coffin for the idea that this was two characters, because and being our child and M3gan being a feminine character, she's happy to see him as a man. Yeah. Very awkward script. I would give it 5 points. I think at the moment it's running on 6.4. I think 6.4 is probably fair. Because people liked it. It's probably, and you've got to remember they're stuffing the ballots as well. I think 3 or 4 points is a little unfair for it, because there are way worse films out there. But then I'm judging it on the curve. So next week, Anon. And I'm kind of looking forward to that because I don't know what it's about. I know it's about anonymity, and I think it's set in if it's the one I'm thinking of, it's...
Didn't we just agree last night that we need to do something mainstream that people are going to be interested in?
We didn't agree on anything. We were drinking and you were smoking, and we said if we want to get a bigger audience, we need to do stuff that people have actually seen. And we just did M3gan. There's a sequel coming. It's literally in the news right now. This is exactly what you're bitching about. We talked about it last night. We need to do more mainstream stuff if we want to
build
an
I meant
audience.
Something like Dune 2.
I don't want to do Dune 2.
I didn't want to do M3gan.
No, but I don't want to do Dune 2. I don't want to watch the first one either, so I don't want to do Dune. It's garbage. It's woke. It's not even hiding it. I don't want to do that. It is really hard these days to find a movie that even approaches mainstream and is worth watching. When was the last movie that you thought was worth watching? When was the last movie you were excited to go to the cinema to see?
I haven't gone to the theater in years.
All right.
I couldn't tell you the last thing I saw at a movie theater.
I tell you, the last couple of movies I was excited to see, both ended up with the same outcome. One of them was The Force Awakens, and one of them was Batman: The Rise of the Dark Knight Rises. Both of them were incredibly disappointing, and I walked out thinking, "Fuck this." The Dark Knight Rises, Batman is on screen for 12 minutes in a 3-hour plus film. Robin is reduced to a sideline remark and has most of the screen time. Fucking terrible film, and it's not Batman at all. Hot take, I know most people don't agree with this, that is the worst interpretation of Batman on screen. Batman is, his key characteristics, he doesn't quit. Not, I quit because I got a sore leg. It makes no sense. Get the surgery, Bruce, you're a billionaire. Made no sense at all. But of course it's a woman taking power from the white man. It was garbage, hot garbage.
It never even came close to reaching the peak that was The Dark Knight.
No.
And that only worked
That's
because
not
of
a great
Heath
film.
Ledger.
There's a little bit more going on with it, but yeah, Heath Ledger's performance was outstanding in that film, utterly outstanding. But there's a lot wrong with that movie, a lot wrong, a lot more than the fans like to admit. There's a lot wrong with that film.
And I didn't necessarily care for Batman Begins either.
It's not
fucking
Batman.
slow. It's plotting.
It's very slow. They over-explain every single detail.
Yeah.
You don't need to know. That was the point with the 60s one. Every time he opened up a gadget on his belt, it would be, "Ooh, what's this one?" Not previously explained to the nth degree. I want some surprises. You know, we want to sort of move along with the narrative. Yeah. So yeah, Anon. It's a sci-fi. I think. It'll be different. So.
You have that to look forward to.
You have that to look forward to.
Thanks for stopping by.
This was a real drudge. Worst episode ever.
No.
Yeah.
No.
No?
No.
What was our worst episode ever? Last episode when you forgot to turn on your mic?
Dark City?
Yeah, that was pretty rough. That was just me going through notes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're working on that balance. The problem here is someone was just dragging their heels through it and not accepting that, you know, any movie can be fun if you're just...
I don't have anything remotely interesting to say about it. I know I don't.
Mm.
It's just a film. I didn't see any interesting symbolism that makes me go, I wonder if they were trying to say this, I wonder if they were trying to say that. There's none of that. It's just a movie. What you see on the surface is mostly what you get. And it's not something that really held my interest. I thought that the plot took a long time to get to anything remotely close to interesting. The first half of the movie is all just set up for the second half of the movie.
Yeah, but you know where it's going to go. You know it's going to go to some murders. And I think the only reason the murders are in there is because that's audience expectation. It could have been so much better if it had just not tried to be a horror.
Yeah.
If it was actually about the emotional connections. But then it's a different movie. A better movie, perhaps. There was a much better one, similar to this, but so much smarter. But it was really low budget, micro budget movie. Can't remember what it was called, but it was. They build this AI model, or this guy builds an AI model, and he uses it to trap pedophiles online. So he's got this thing, and it looks and behaves like a real girl, but it doesn't exist. There's no physical version. It's just online. No. That's an operating system thing. It's just a little girl, and she's trapping people online, and it's told in, I think, 4 scenes actually, I think, and it's they jump ahead, and she's gradually evolving beyond just being this model. She still wants to do the job, and they're all getting older, and it's told as she evolves, and it's smart, and it's clever, and it's just a clever film, and it has evolution in it. It shows you her turning into a real person, evolving beyond the shadow of her invention. And the final scene is pretty remarkable. It's got Lance Hendrickson in it, and he's in a wheelchair by now, and he really is. He's really old, and he must have read the script and thought, I want to be part of this. And and he's playing the guy who invented her in the first place, but now he's really old, and she's outgrown him. And she's a robot now, but there's cables out of her back that are attaching her to the roof. She's learned to dance, which may have been ripped off in M3gan, actually. And yeah, then he goes and she's finally dancing, and then the record just starts skipping, and she just looks, and she's realizing that she has no freedom. She's not turning into something. She is just going around in circles on this. And it's that realization that record skipping is the twist, that when she suddenly realizes what she really is. And that's a well-written film, micro budget, almost annoying. It almost looks like a children's TV show at some points where it's just, there is no budget. But a well-written film that works really well. That's what this isn't. It had to go for the murders. It had to go for the shock value. And the only reason they've called it a comedy is because I think the horror doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well.
Yep.
I guess we're gonna do a non, because God hates us all, and
I think God's in charge.
Not down here. I think he gave up on this fucking place.
Yeah.
Seen it outside, like.
Yeah.
And by that, I don't mean this country. I mean this planet.
Yeah. He means you.
All of us.
He means you. America.
Mostly you. And you.
Mostly me.
Alright, it's hot as fuck in here. I'm dying. There's sweat in my eyes. I'm done.
Oh, what did you think of this George Lucas thing?
George Lucas thing?
Yeah, it's all in the news, the Acolyte and all that stuff. You want to talk about that for 20 minutes?
I don't. What time is it?
1:04. I don't know what that means. It's not 1:04.
Well, it's not a time.
No,
It's
I'm
how
only
long
joking.
we've been
I'm just
recording.
messing with you. Next week, Anon. Same place, same channel.
Same bat time, same bat channel. Can
I think
say
we're
that?
gonna mix this up. I think we've been talking about this, and this ain't working. I think we need to go to Rumble. So I think what we'll do is have an abbreviated 20-minute episode online. And if you want to watch it, you just click the link and go to Rumble, because there's so much we can't say and there's so much we can't do. And I think it's time. I think it's time to get off YouTube. I think YouTube is a sinking ship, and I think we're the rats.
We're all the rats.
Yeah, I think it's going to have to happen. I think we're going to move to Rumble and build a proper channel over there and use this as a flag, and we'll have the first 20 minutes, and if you want to watch the rest, click on it. It'll still be free, obviously. It's the same, but just we're able to say what we want to say. More. Yeah.
There were things we could have talked about with this film that we can't.
Yeah. There are words we're going to have to blank out because YouTube just will shadow ban us.
Yeah.
Again, or more. Last week we talked about what Black Swan was really all about, and our viewing figures just dived. So yeah, I think we're going to move to Rumble, but we'll see. We'll let you know first, and see you next time. Thank you very much.
Pizza.
What?
Pizza. I used to know a guy in Denver, Colorado.
It just won't
who
stop,
was
will it?
the whitest human I've ever met, named Steven.
More
the
than
White
you?
Guy. Yeah.
Steve the White Guy.
Steven the White Guy.
Okay.
And that's how he ended all conversations. As if it was on the phone or if he was walking out of the room or whatever. Pizza.
Peace out.
Pizza.
Yeah, but what was he trying to say?
Peace.
It's a bit shit.
Yeah.
I used to work with this Indian guy, and he dropped something and he shouted, "Cheesy rice." I said, "What did you just say?" He said, "Cheesy rice." Why wouldn't you just say? He said, "Well, so I'm a Hindu, but I don't want to offend any of the other gods in case I'm wrong." Okay.
Yeah, cheese and rice, shut the front door,
Oh.
all that kind of stupid shit. It annoys the hell out of me.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Even I'm not that white.
No. But yeah, this dude was the whitest human I've ever seen. He drove an Acura Integra. He always wore, in the middle of Denver, or not Denver, Colorado Springs, Colorado. Always wore board shorts and a white t-shirt or a wife beater. He sold ecstasy.
Like all white guys. Hang on a minute. We've gone off topic. Are there real springs in Colorado Springs? And are board shorts really made of boards?
Board shorts are not made out of boards, but there are hot springs.
Hot springs?
Yeah.
Okay. Don't they lose their springiness?
Nope. They stay bouncy.
I do like it when they stay bouncy.
Now we're off topic.
And now we're off.